If I had a pound for every time someone asked me what the West Brom team that were relegated in the 2020-21 season were up to these days, I would have literally £3. Which isn't much, but it's something. All the same guy, by the way. A perennial yo-yo club, only Norwich City have more top-flight relegations and promotions under their belt during the Premier League era than West Brom, but since going down with a whimper 4 years ago, the Baggies have been unable to find a way back. Dreadful that season, under the combined managerial might of Slaven Bilic and Sam Allardyce, two men, incidentally, who also managed West Ham consecutively. West Brom won just 5 games all season, amassing a meagre 26 points, which was considered quite bad for a newly promoted club at the time. Of course, if a team came up from the Championship and did that now, they would probably erect a statue of the manager outside the stadium, their top scorer would be knighted by Charles, and the whole team would be inducted into the English Football Hall of Fame. But this was 2021. They were different times. This was a team, rather amusingly, that despite being terrible almost all season, still managed to go unbeaten, score 8 goals against, and take 4 points off Chelsea, who won the Champions League that season. That meant that over 15% of West Brom's points, and almost a quarter of all their goals, all season, came in just 2 games against the soon-to-be-crowned European champions, who only conceded 2 goals in 7 games throughout the entire Champions League knockout stages, against Atletico Madrid, Porto, Real Madrid, and Manchester City. It's a funny old game. If you're a regular viewer wondering why I have made 2 Where Are They Now videos in such quick succession, as opposed to my usual award-winning investigative journalism and world-class in-depth documentaries, not my words, ladies and gentlemen, the words of Shakin' Stevens, there are 2 reasons. One is that I have spent 2 days stuck in a hospital over the last week, I am on pain meds, and I am having to wear a wrist splint 24/7, which makes it surprisingly difficult to type, among other things. Not like that. And the other is that I am spending a week in the Basque Country around the Basque Derby between Real Sociedad and Athletic Club, hoping to make 1, if not 2 videos about the region and its football for my second channel, Alfie Potsama. I say that not because I want any sympathy or to tempt you all into subscribing to my second channel, although obviously you definitely should, but because I didn't want you to think that I'd fallen into some kind of time warp and thought that it was 2018 all over again, or that I was just being completely bone idle. Normal service will soon resume, assuming I don't die, although I do find some of these Where Are They Now videos for relegated teams pretty interesting, and it seems that some of you do too, as they've always done surprisingly well. Anyway, the 11 is determined by most minutes played in the league that season, but I will run through the entire squad at the end, so if you were dying to find out what Ahmed Hegazi was up to these days, fear not. The fact that he only played 1 Premier League game for West Brom in the 2020-21 season doesn't mean that you are going to be deprived of finding out. Unlike Sir Jim Ratcliffe, I am very generous. Without further ado then, who made an ill-fated attempt to return to football with Österlen FF in Sweden in the 2020-21 season, who were his last club, here is West Brom's starting 11 and squad from the 2020-21 season, and where those players are now. Sam Johnston, Wolverhampton Wanderers. The only player in this 11 who I've met in person at an offensively expensive beach bar in Portugal, and by met, I mean one of my mates said, "Hey, is that Sam Johnston?" And the rest of us confirmed that, no, that is in fact Sam Johnston. He was playing for Crystal Palace at the time. Johnston is a former England international, according to Wikipedia, who have written him off as having received his last call-up in 2023, but as a close personal friend of his, the 2 of us having bonded over the pain of being charged €15 for a cocktail, I have full faith that, at some stage, he could earn a recall. A graduate of the Manchester United youth ranks, who went out on loan a staggering 10 times, those are Chelsea loanee numbers right there. West Brom were Johnston's first permanent club outside of the Red Devils. Following an excellent spell on loan at Aston Villa, where he kept 22 clean sheets, following defeat in the Championship playoff final, Johnston joined local rivals West Brom instead. Villa beat West Brom in the playoff semi-finals the previous season, but unable to do any business under the weight of crippling financial problems, the Baggies swooped in and signed Johnston for a reported £6.5 million. Johnston made 167 appearances in 4 seasons at the Hawthorns, only one of them, this one, coming in the Premier League before Crystal Palace offered him a Premier League lifeline in 2022. Consequently, West Brom lost Johnston for nothing after his contract had expired, having previously rejected a £10 million bid from West Ham United. Rotated with Vicente Guaita and Dean Henderson in his 2 seasons at Selhurst Park, Johnston joined Wolves last summer for the same £10 million fee that West Brom previously turned down. Having started this season as Gary O'Neill's number 1, Johnston was dropped for Jose Sarr after just 7 games, and he has been unable to regain his place ever since. Not even on the bench in recent weeks, Johnston is widely expected to leave Wolves this summer, likely for a reduced fee, with Tottenham rumoured to be interested. If I see him in any beach bars during the off-season, I will of course make sure to ask and let you all know first. Darnell Furlong, West Brom. Sam Johnston and Darnell Furlong are the first 2 inclusions in this 11 because they were West Brom's goalkeeper and right-back in the 2020-21 season, but they also made the most Premier League appearances and played the most minutes of Premier League football for the Baggies that season. Furlong, who I've never met in any beach bars, began his career at Queen's Park Rangers, and I was actually there when he made his first team debut at the KC Stadium in a Premier League game against Hull City. That was in 2015, when Furlong was only 19, and loan moves to Northampton, Cambridge, and Swindon all followed. West Brom signed Furlong for a reported £1.5 million in 2019, following 2.5 years of regular football at Loftus Road, and he has basically been the Baggies' starting right-back ever since, racking up 229 appearances. That puts him above Ben Foster, Craig Dawson, and Jonathan Greening in West Brom's all-time appearance charts, and he is now just 8 appearances behind Lee Hughes, whose West Brom career ended when he was sentenced to 6 years imprisonment for causing death by dangerous driving. Keep it light, Alf. Semi Ajayi, West Brom. A West Brom player, but most likely not for long, Semi Ajayi is out of contract this summer and has been linked with both Hull City and Reading. Seemingly, the guy just loves playing for clubs owned by absolute nutjobs. Full name Oluwasemelogu Adesiwu Ibirapo Ajayi, Semi, as he is thankfully better known, came through the youth ranks at Charlton Athletic, but he was snapped up by Arsenal before he had ever played a game for the club. He also never played for Arsenal, going out on loan and then joining Cardiff City on a permanent basis, who he also never played for. Honestly, joining your first 3 clubs without ever making an appearance for any of them has got to be close to some kind of a record. Carlos Kaiser would be proud. Ajayi wasn't a fraud though, I am happy to report, eventually getting game time with Rotherham United and subsequently West Brom. A fellow 2019 signing, Ajayi has played 173 games for the Baggies, putting him in a meaty sandwich between Claudio Jakob and Zoltan Gera in the club's all-time appearance charts. Daro Shapsw, Ipswich Town. Born in Dublin, but technically a graduate of West Brom's own youth ranks, having joined the Baggies at the age of 16, Daro Shapsw is one of 3 players who I would consider to be really good centre-backs at Ipswich Town this season. Yet they have conceded 74 goals this term, so I probably need to reevaluate my judgments. I guess the gulf is just so big between the Premier League and the Championship now that you can be an outstanding centre-back in one and look thoroughly mediocre in the other. Although, at 24 and 26, I still think that Greaves and O'Shea will most likely become Premier League centre-backs long-term, if not necessarily next season. No one asked? Yeah, fair enough. Moving on then. O'Shea played over 100 games for West Brom before joining Burnley for £7 million, where he was relegated in his only season, before joining Ipswich for £15 million, where he has just been relegated again. That means a £32 million move to Burnley, Leeds, or this season's Championship playoff final winners is surely next, followed by a 3rd successive relegation. Kyle Bartley, West Brom. We're deploying a back 3 in this 11 because centre-backs Semi Ajayi, Daro Shapsw and Kyle Bartley were all among West Brom's leading appearance makers in the 2020-21 season. Bartley, along with Furlong and Ajayi, is one of only 3 players in this 11 who is still at the Hawthorns, and he is now the longest-serving player at the club. Signed from Swansea for a reported £8 million in 2018, following an excellent spell on loan at Leeds, he has since played 231 games for the club, putting him 2 ahead of Darnell Furlong in the club's all-time appearance charts. A graduate of the Arsenal youth ranks, who left the club 12 months before Semi Ajayi arrived, Bartley signed a new contract extension at the Hawthorns just 2 weeks ago, keeping him at the club until 2026. Connor Townsend, Ipswich Town. A teammate of Daro Shapsw, Connor Townsend joined the Tractor Boys directly from West Brom following their promotion last season for a fee of £750,000. Born and raised within 15 minutes of me, close to one of my favourite Pan-Asian restaurants. This might be the most narcissistic video that I've ever made. Townsend came through the youth ranks at Hull City, but despite being highly rated and much talked about, he never made a league appearance for the club. His only first-team appearance of any description came as a 55th minute substitute in the League Cup against Leyton Orient, and yes, I know you were wondering, I was there, I'm happy to confirm. Townsend had to drop down to League One for his big break at Scunthorpe United, but he fought his way back up to the Championship, and even the top flight after joining West Brom for £1.5 million in 2018, 50% of which went to Hull City. Given the dearth of left-backs that we've had post-Andy Robertson, we probably would have been better off trying to bring him back ourselves. Conor Gallagher, Atletico Madrid. The following season, on loan at Crystal Palace, was when Conor Gallagher really announced himself as a player of significant talent, but it was at the Hawthorns that he earned his stripes in the Premier League. One of few bright sparks in a fairly depressing season on loan from Chelsea, Gallagher, aged only 20 to 21 at the time, made more appearances for the Baggies in the middle of the park that season than anyone else. That earns him another Premier League loan, this time at Selhurst Park, where Gallagher made his big impression. 2 seasons in the Chelsea first team followed, before he was sold to Atletico Madrid for a reported £34 million on the basis that, as an academy graduate, his sale could be booked as pure profit for PSR purposes. I don't know about you, but what I really love about modern football is just the sheer romance of it. Cobham Connor has since racked up 42 appearances for Atleti, enjoying an outstanding start to the season and looking like an ideal Simeone player owing to his stamina and work rate. Romain Sawyers, Bristol Rovers. One of the most relaxed midfielders that I have ever watched live, I'm pretty sure that I once saw Romain Sawyers pull out a deck chair on the centre circle during a game. Born in Birmingham, but a St Kitts and Nevis international, Sawyers came through the youth ranks at West Brom, but didn't play a single game for the club during his first stint there. It was only after earning rave reviews at both Walsall and Brentford that West Brom re-signed Sawyers for a reported £2.9 million in 2019, handing him 64 appearances over the next 2 seasons. Moves to Cardiff City, Wimbledon and Bristol Rovers have followed, where Sawyers just missed out on making a midfield reunion with former Brentford teammate Ryan Woods. Matt Phillips, Oxford United. A stalwart at West Brom for 8 whole seasons, Matt Phillips racked up 255 appearances at the Hawthorns, and only Sam Johnston and Darnell Furlong made more appearances for the club during the 2020-21 season. Signed from QPR for a reported £6 million in 2016, Phillips only left the club at the end of last season when his contract expired. Snapped up by Oxford United, who secured a very impressive Championship survival this season given their budget, Phillips ranks 82nd in the Championship's appearance charts since being rebranded in 2004, despite spending 5 seasons playing in the Premier League, which puts him ahead of Wes Morgan, but currently still behind Matt Mills, 2 absolute Coca-Cola men. Matias Pereira, Cruzeiro. The star man in this West Brom team, and, in truth, it wasn't even close, in a sea of relative mediocrity, Matias Pereira stood out a mile. Impressive on loan from Sporting in the Championship the previous season, Pereira rose his level in the Premier League, either scoring or assisting a quite incredible half of all of West Brom's goals, or 48.5% to be exact, and that was despite missing 5 games. A wonderful talent, most people expected Pereira to be snapped up by another Premier League club following West Brom's relegation, touted as a potential replacement for Jack Grealish at Aston Villa, but in the end he became the first in a wave of players to sign big money contracts in Saudi Arabia, joining Al Hilal. In truth, with the deals that were to come, Pereira's contract was made to look fairly modest, and despite spending 3 years contracted to Al Hilal, he only ever played 42 games for the club. Admittedly, that is still 35 more than his compatriot Neymar. Still only 28 years of age, Pereira returned to Brazil in 2023, joining Cruzeiro, initially on loan and then on a permanent. Eye-catching in the Brasileiro last season, Pereira won his first Brazil cap in 2024, having scored 8 goals and made 7 assists in 34 appearances. Callum Robinson, Cardiff City. With all due respect to Callum Robinson, it was West Brom's striking options in the 2020-21 season that made it very unlikely that they would be able to survive. Robinson played the most minutes and made the most appearances out of any of them, racking up 28 Premier League appearances in total, in which he scored 5 goals. Amusingly, 4 out of those 5 goals, or 80%, came against Chelsea, meaning that Robinson scored 4 goals in 2 games against the Blues, and then just 1 goal in his other 26 Premier League appearances. He didn't score many more the following season in the Championship. I mean, unsurprising really, he didn't even get to play against Chelsea, before joining Cardiff City for £1.75 million. The scorer of 10 goals in only 22 games this season, that wasn't enough to keep Cardiff in the Championship, clearly, as they were relegated. Reportedly unhappy in South Wales, Robinson nonetheless penned a new 2-year deal in January, keeping him at the now League One club until 2027. That is it for West Brom's most frequent starting 11 in the 2020-21 season, but I promise you the entire squad, so the entire squad is what you'll get. In goal, David Button, brother of retired F1 driver Johnston, was West Brom's number 2, and he now plays for League One Reading. In terms of defenders, Kieran Gibbs retired in 2023, following a couple of years playing for Inter Miami. Chelsea legend Branislav Ivanovic retired at the end of that 2020-21 season, which was enough to convince him that he no longer even liked football. Lee Peltier retired at the end of last season, having played for Middlesbrough and Rotherham United, following his forgettable season at the Hawthorns. Cedric Kipre only departed last summer, joining Brom in Ligue 1 on a free transfer, where he has been a regular fixture this season. And the one that you've all been waiting for, Egyptian international Ahmed Hegazi, now plays for Neom, a club named after a city that doesn't yet exist, in the second tier of Saudi Arabian football. In midfield, Jake Livermore hasn't had a club since leaving Watford a year ago, now aged 35. Grady Diangana is still at West Brom. Poland legend Kamil Grosicki plays for and captains Pogoń Szczecin, a club whose name I've never been able to pronounce and have made zero effort to learn. Rekeem Harper is at Port Vale. Carl Edwards recently joined Stevenage. Robert Snodgrass retired in January of 2024, 6 months after leaving his last club Hearts. Sam Field is a key player at Queen's Park Rangers. Ainsley Maitland-Niles is starring for Lyon. Oke Yakuzlu left West Brom for Trabzonspor last summer. And Filip Krovinovic, who spent 18 months on loan at West Brom from Benfica, has been with Hajduk Split in his native Croatia since 2021. And finally, in terms of forwards, Hal Robson-Kanu retired in 2021, at the end of the season in question, aged only 30, and now sells turmeric for a living. Charlie Austin rediscovered his love of football with 8th tier AFC Tottenham this season. Mbadian, and you're not going to believe this one, is a teammate of Ahmed Hegazi's at the club named after an unbuilt city, Neom, in Saudi Arabia. And last but not least, Carlan Grant is still at West Brom, where he scored 7 goals in 36 games this season. Managers Slaven Bilic and Sam Allardyce, meanwhile, are both currently out of work, Bilic having last managed Al Fateh in Saudi Arabia, and Allardyce most recently of Leeds United, where he was relegated from the Premier League, as he also was at West Brom. Well, that is it for today's video, although I should probably clarify that David Button isn't really Jensen Button's brother. I made that up. I know, I'm odd, but everything else was true. I would never lie about Ahmed Hegazi. That is one clear red line of mine. Thank you all very much, as ever, for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed today's video or found it remotely not terrible. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and of course make sure that you're subscribed and have notifications turned on, both for this channel, HITC Sevens, and also my second channel that I alluded to earlier on, Alfie Potsama, where you now know, actually by the time you're watching this, there will be a 6th video about the turmoil at Hull City Ladies, a club whose co-owner is actually trying to get them relegated, despite the fact that they survived this season. Very strange, go and watch it, I recommend it highly. But then I made it, so I would. But there'll be a link to that probably on this at some point, but if not, just search for it. And for anything else that you're looking for, just check out the video description down below. But even more importantly, go out and have a magnificent day, and I hope you're doing well, Ahmed.